Here with you today, my name is Patrick Dixon. I'm often described as Europe's leading futurist, and I advise companies like Google, Nokia, Microsoft, IBM, who are very at the cutting edge of the online communities. And what I want to talk to you about today is the impact of these communities on our young people. On the one hand, we want them to embrace these technologies, to be part of the virtual world, to gain the skills which they will need, not only to be well educated, but also to be very employable. But on the other hand, as parents, and I'm a parent of 4 children, all of whom have been through your school, we are also concerned about their emotional well-being, about their protection from abuse, from being targeted, from being bullied, from being exposed to all kinds of really inappropriate and really horrible material which will corrupt them and maybe destroy their lives. So these stakes are very high to get it right. Firstly, let's look at the technology, and then perhaps I can share a couple of stories from our own experiences as parents. The technologies are fascinating, wonderful, amazing, or confusing, alarming, and totally incomprehensible, depending on your worldview. Just take online communities. Facebook alone has over 200 million members right now. Just Twitter has emerged as a brand new community. It's growing at the rate of 500,000 members a month. It's up to 7 million already, and it's just the beginning. We have technologies that we carry around with us all the time, which means on the mobile phones of tomorrow, every mobile phone will have unlimited internet access. And yes, unless you and I, as parents, take steps to manage that process, and I want to come to that. And then we've got the issue of computers, whether it's computers at school, computers in other people's homes, which are perhaps a very big area for concern, actually, and computers in your own home. In the olden days, people had computers just to do homework, but now they can watch TV on their computer, which means the computer may well disappear into another room. In the olden days, the computer was one fixed facility, locked in a corner there, with all kinds of cables attached to printers, maybe in your house. Now, that computer may be a tiny little laptop, which is just about anywhere within the house. So, how do we manage this process? If we just look at the explosion of what's available, YouTube, just that single YouTube video site is now responsible for 15% of all web traffic. If you haven't taken a look, you're missing out. What is it? It's publish yourself. It's video yourself. It's a place where you can upload clips up to 10 minutes long, if you're an ordinary person, of life, the universe, your comments, your dog, whatever you like. And if they're entertaining or interesting or quirky or really downright peculiar, you may be rewarded with thousands and thousands of video views a day. I mean, my own YouTube site has had 1.6 million video views, doing nothing particularly special other than things like talking into camera like this. So for a teenager, this can be an extraordinary, powerful way to brand themselves. Live video feeds from mobile phones, they all have this capacity these days, but live video feeds, one video call to another, is a simply uncool and very scary thing to do. Most young people want to manicure their brand. They want to know what they look like in the mirror before they go out, and they certainly want to know what they look like on video before the rest of the world sees them. And so what we're seeing is these video phones used to record clips, which are then put up, edited, massaged about, or just downright rejected, and if they're any good, they're then put up onto somewhere like YouTube. And once they're on YouTube, that video clip can then be put as a link anywhere else, or it can be embedded. So it plays as a little TV picture on a web page that might be your own blog, or that's a web diary which you might want to create. And these things take seconds to set up. I hope that other people will have shown you these things this evening. Scary, potential for abuse certainly, and so we could go on. So the technologies are here. How do we manage them? Well, I just want to say our starting point as parents has always been that, yes, we're totally focused on the development of the child. So the first thing we wanted was to make sure that our children had the technology tools to give them an advantage. So I was one of the first people to buy some of these technologies and bring them into our house, explain to the children how they're used, and to make sure that I also know how these systems are working. They quickly got better than me at almost everything and became my greatest tutors. But because it had been a proactive thing, and because I'd taken the opportunity for face-to-face time with our children in actually setting these things up, right from the start, I was on the same techno journey of them, or struggling to catch up. But nevertheless, we're in it together. It's not just a question of buying a computer, sitting it in the corner. We had some ground rules when we started, which, I mean, our youngest is now 19, our oldest is now 26, so we're a generation on. But our ground rules when we started will need adapting now into a new culture. But, for example, we did not want people using computers. In fact, you may think this is crazy, but we also didn't want people having TVs in their own bedrooms, because, quite frankly, a lot of the stuff on late-night TV seemed to us to be extremely unsuitable for someone who might just decide at the age of 11 or 12 or something, or even younger, to just turn it on and watch. And we didn't want tired, ratty children in the morning. So for us, entertainment and education, if it's digital, it happens in a family space where others can see what's going on. On the computer, I made it really clear to our own children that I was particularly interested in the history of the web browser. The history is a place where there's a record made by the web browser automatically of every site that's been visited, maybe in the last month. You can set the settings how you like. But within that history, you can see instantly if someone's been going into dodgy sites. I also made it absolutely clear what activities I'm delighted for them to use online and what activities I'm frankly would be extremely upset for them to do online. And again, we agreed about that. So the kind of sites, kind of activities. And as I said, I would be looking over their shoulder from time to time, either physically, wandering into the room, or virtually, in terms of actually having a look-see. And I said that applied to their friends as well. I said that I would hold them responsible for any access by anyone of their generation in our house, and so they needed to watch that too. Why did I say that? Well, because I made it clear to them that I didn't want to put them in any way of temptation, and to put struggles with them, where the friends come around and say, "Oh, let's look at this site," and they say, and they're not quite sure. If you talk to our children now, they would say that they are really grateful that we put those restrictions in place, because it meant that it was much easier for them to have conversations with their friends. They just say, "Sorry, I'm not allowed to," or "Please don't do that, my dad will see it." And that was enough. I think that it is also perfectly appropriate for a younger child, and we can debate about what the age is, but for a younger child to agree that you set up where their email goes together, that if they're having a YouTube site that you also have access to it, and probably on Facebook too. And again, you have to have limits. That means you don't want to be a spy, but it does mean that they know from time to time that you have the right to have a look. And if they've got a major problem with that, then that needs to be talked through as to why they've got a problem with that, what it is that they would be sensitive about, and to come to some agreement about what your access will be. And, you know, I hope that my life should be equally open as well, that someone should be able to inspect my own history box and all the rest of it. I made it very clear to our children that I would take a very dim view if I found the history box had been deleted. You know, I know they've been on the internet lots, and I go there and find there's no history later than last Wednesday. And I will assume that there's been a problem, and someone has tried to cover it up. I've also made it clear to our children that actually it's not just us that are concerned. Everything is monitored. Every Google search is monitored. It's up there in cyberspace, whether you like it or not. The IP provider, the people who connect your computer to the internet, have a complete log of every single site that they're delivering to your computer. Your computer is identifiable, and they can see everything. And I said to them, my own reputation is on the line here. I'm in a public position. I have a high profile. I don't want all kinds of stuff going up and down on any account that's related to me. That would be dodgy or embarrassing. The email system is really, really important to crack. It's absolutely vital that children do not give out their emails or use emails in ways where they will be filtered and located quickly by robots. Robots can scan maybe 100 million pages in a day, and they are looking simply for email addresses. When they find them, they collect them into a file, and then they sell them. And a spammer can buy maybe 500 million email addresses for, you know, £100, £200. And so, of course, we then get huge amounts of email. Now, some of those spammers will be phishing scammers. Some of them will be what's that? Sorry. That's when people are trying to get you, to trick you to giving your password details for your bank account and then do a raid. Some of them will be selling all kinds of legitimate products and services, and some of them, unfortunately, will be doing awful pornographic stuff and offering access to anyone as a result of a mouse click. They'll get a certain amount of free stuff, perhaps, and then they're in. And so it's really important that we take steps for that. I would recommend Norton. Norton has not only privacy filters to protect you from phishing scams and things, it has parental filters, it has all kinds of controls that you can put in place to try and regulate what kind of access your children get into. There are other people here tonight who will be able to guide you more about parental controls. There are some browsers which will only allow you to search certain sites and things like that. But at the end of the day, these are matters where you have to keep in dialogue, discussion. Let's be involved. Let's not make sure we abdicate and just clear off. These are very, very important, that we are mentors, coaches and guides to our children in this digital world. And you're going to also hear about digital bullying and the rest. These are really profound problems, huge problems. Up to 1 in 10 pupils in some schools have been victimised by really cruel SMS messages and things like that using mobile phones. So let's be careful, let's be sensitive, let's keep the dialogue going. Let's lay down clear ground rules, let's keep to them, and let's be sure our children have a really great digital future. Oh, and just a final thought, just reviewing that clip, you know, if you think it doesn't matter, a friend of mine is a social worker, and one of the children which she came across in care was found to be accessing the computer online in her own room. What the foster parents didn't realise was that she was in touch with an individual. She didn't know his name, real name. She didn't really know how old he was. He could be 17-year-old, for all she knew, who was telling her to do various things, acts in front of a camera using Skype and the built-in video camera on her computer, which again is just a mouse click to activate in a video call. And as a reward, every time she exposed herself in some particular way, she would get sent a CD. Well, the big question is, not only was that an awful thing to be happening without anyone knowing, but this 11, 12-year-old doing this, but the big question is this: how many people were watching the other end? In how many countries? Was it being recorded? Was she going to land up in some porno video somehow? I mean, these are big issues. This was a half hour in the evening, when no one was there, in her room, when they thought she was just doing her homework. So let's take this really seriously. Let's be really aware of what's happening. Let's be wise. And let's be safe.